Aliens accidentally summon Deathworlders. Entire fleet responds, reaches its dramatic apex when war leader Drex's Craxus Armada confronts Captain Reed's forces over the Senvar system. The tension shatters as Reed unleashes the newly created quantum disruptors, instantly disabling a Craxus vessel without destruction. A perfect demonstration of Earth-Senvar cooperation that forces the predatory Craxus to retreat, fundamentally shifting the power dynamic in this corner of the galaxy. The three suns of the Senvar system cast their multi-hued light across the crystalline dome of the Aurora Research Station. Inside, the atmosphere buzzed with anticipation as researchers and officials gathered for what promised to be a monumental achievement. Hanging suspended in the center of the main chamber was the culmination of decades of research, a shimmering apparatus of interlaced energy fields and crystalline matrices that seemed to bend the very fabric of reality around it. Dr. Aylor stood before the assembly, his translucent form emanating a soft blue glow that intensified with his excitement. Like all Valorans of the Senvar Alliance, his body consisted primarily of a silicon-based crystalline structure that refracted light in mesmerizing patterns. His voice, a melodic vibration that resonated through the chamber, carried both pride and solemnity. "Today marks our greatest achievement," he announced, his tendrils weaving complex patterns in the air, the Valoran equivalent of emphatic gesturing. The quantum gateway represents not merely technological advancement, but the philosophical aspiration of our species. To connect, to understand, to transcend the limitations of space itself. Beside him, his assistant Mara's form pulsed with anticipation, her crystalline body shifting through subtle shades of purple and green. She had spent countless cycles alongside Dr. Aylor, deciphering the ancient quantum texts that had guided their research. Though younger and less experienced, her intuitive grasp of quantum mechanics had proven invaluable. Among the gathered dignitaries, Supreme Counselor Varen's imposing form dominated the front row. His crystalline structure, denser and more opaque than most, reflected his status within the Alliance. Like many officials, he had initially viewed the Quantum Gateway project with skepticism, concerned about potential disruptions to their peaceful society. Yet the promise of instantaneous travel between distant worlds had eventually won the Council's support. "The Gateway draws upon principles first postulated in our ancient texts," Dr. Aylor continued, gesturing toward the shimmering apparatus. "For too long, we interpreted these concepts as mere philosophical abstractions, but our research has proven they contain genuine scientific insight, the quantitative formulas necessary to fold space-time and create stable wormholes." Mara stepped forward, her voice a higher-pitched resonance. "We have calibrated the gateway according to the most precise translations of the 7th Quantum Codex. The initiating sequence will establish a stable corridor through subspace, allowing matter to traverse vast distances instantaneously." The assembly vibrated with approval, the Valoran equivalent of applause. Even Supreme Counselor Varen's form shifted to a more receptive configuration, his earlier reservations seemingly forgotten in the face of imminent success. Dr. Aylor approached the control interface, his tendrils extending to interact with the floating holographic displays. "We begin the activation sequence now. The gateway will require approximately 30 seconds to establish quantum coherence before the portal manifests." The apparatus hummed to life, its crystalline components vibrating at increasing frequencies. Energy fields pulsed and expanded, creating concentric rings of distorted space. The air within the chamber seemed to thicken as reality itself bent around the focal point of the gateway. Mara monitored the quantum fluctuations, her form rigid with concentration. "Energy patterns are consistent with simulations. Subspace coherence at 70% and rising." The assembly watched in silent anticipation as the gateway's energy signature intensified. Ripples of distortion spread outward, creating a mesmerizing visual display that reflected off the crystalline bodies of the gathered Valorans. Dr. Aylor's voice resonated with triumph. Coherence approaching 100%. Portal manifestation imminent. But instead of the expected spatial aperture, the gateway emitted a sudden pulse of concentrated energy that shot upward, penetrating the station's crystalline dome and continuing into space. The beam, invisible to the naked eye, but registering intensely on the station's sensors, carried modulated quantum information in a tight, directional burst. Chaos erupted in the chamber. The assembled dignitaries vibrated with alarm, their crystalline forms shifting to defensive configurations. Supreme Counselor Varen surged forward, his voice a harsh, dissonant frequency. "What has happened? This is not a spatial gateway." Dr. Aylor frantically manipulated the controls, attempting to halt the energy pulse. "Something is wrong. The gateway has activated an entirely different protocol than we intended." Mara accessed the monitoring systems, her form flickering with distress. "The energy signature, it's not creating a wormhole. It's transmitting information, a coherent signal directed outward from our system." "Shut it down immediately," Varen commanded, his form now pulsing an angry red. After several tense moments, Dr. Aylor managed to deactivate the apparatus. The energy beam dissipated, but the damage was done. Whatever signal the gateway had transmitted was now propagating through space, beyond their ability to recall. "Explain this failure," Varen demanded, looming over Dr. Aylor. The scientist's form dimmed with distress. "I don't understand. The calibrations were precise. The translation of the ancient text was—" He paused, a sudden realization dawning. The translation, Mara, accessed the original passage regarding the activation sequence. Mara quickly retrieved the relevant information, projecting the ancient Valoran script alongside their modern interpretation. Together, they scrutinized the key passages, their forms gradually stiffening as they recognized their error. "There," Dr. Aylor indicated, his voice subdued. "We mistranslated a crucial phrase. The ancient word verilic has dual meanings, bridge pathway and protection summons. We interpreted it as instructions for creating a spatial bridge. But in this context, it meant to activate a protection protocol," Mara finished, her form dimming with horror. "We didn't create a gateway. We transmitted a distress signal." Supreme Counselor Varen's form pulsed with rage. "A distress signal? To whom? There are no other civilizations within our charted region of space. The ancient texts speak of guardians from beyond our stars," Dr. Aylor explained hesitantly. "We assumed it was mythology, but perhaps—" "You've sent a call for help into uncharted space." Varen's voice resonated with fury. "Based on myths and mistranslations, do you realize what you've done? Any response could come from hostile entities, predators rather than protectors." As the implications sank in, a profound silence fell over the assembly. The triumphant unveiling of the quantum gateway had transformed into a potential existential crisis. Whatever civilizations might receive their inadvertent distress call, the peaceful Senvar alliance was now exposed to the wider galaxy, for better or worse. Aboard the Earth Alliance flagship Intrepid, Captain Marcus Reed stood rigid before the main view screen, his weathered face illuminated by the holographic display of sensor data. The unexpected alert had interrupted the routine patrol of the fleet's outer defensive perimeter, pulling him from a much-needed rest cycle. "Analysis confirmed, sir," Lieutenant Commander Davis reported, her crisp voice cutting through the tense atmosphere on the bridge. "The quantum signature is unlike anything in our database, but the pattern is unmistakable. It's a distress call." Reed's gray eyes narrowed as he studied the data. At 53, with 3 decades of service in Earth's defense forces, he had developed an intuition for trouble. This signal raised every internal alarm he possessed. Origin? He asked simply. A star system approximately 30 light-years beyond our territorial boundary. Davis replied. Uncharted region. Signal propagation suggests advanced technology, possibly beyond our current capabilities. Security Officer Winters, a stocky man with a perpetual frown, voiced the concern shared by many on the bridge. Could be a trap, Captain. The Craxus have used fake distress signals before. Reed considered this possibility. The Craxus Dominion, a militant species encountered 5 years earlier, had proven themselves ruthless opponents, willing to employ any deception to gain tactical advantage. The quantum modulation doesn't match Craxus signatures, Science Officer Patel interjected, her dark eyes focused on her console. This is something new entirely, and the signal strength suggests genuine urgency. Reed paced the command deck, weighing his options. Earth Alliance protocols were clear. Investigate all distress calls, but exercise extreme caution when venturing beyond established territories. The decision was ultimately his. Tactical assessment, he commanded. Lieutenant Commander Davis responded immediately. The Intrepid battle group includes 3 destroyers and support vessels. We're at 97% combat readiness. If it's a trap, we're as prepared as we can be. Reed nodded. Decision made. Set course for the signal origin. Alert the battle group. Full defensive posture, but weapons passive unless I give the order. I want to be prepared for anything. But we're not going in looking for a fight. Aye, Captain, Davis acknowledged, relaying the orders. As the Intrepid and its escort vessels altered course, Reed retreated to his ready room. There, he recorded his official log entry, carefully noting his decision rationale. If this turned out poorly, at least Earth Command would understand his reasoning. Captain's log, supplemental, he began, his deep voice steady despite his misgivings. We've detected what appears to be a distress signal from an uncharted system. Its quantum characteristics suggest technology beyond our current understanding. While security advises caution, our mandate is clear. We investigate and render aid when possible. I've ordered the battle group to proceed at maximum sustainable speed. Estimated arrival in 14 hours. Read out. 14 hours later, the Intrepid battle group dropped out of FTL on the outskirts of an unusual trinary star system. The 3 suns, 1 blue-white giant and 2 smaller yellow companions, created a complex gravitational dance that would have made navigation treacherous without advanced computational assistance. Multiple artificial structures detected, Patel reported, her voice tight with excitement. Primarily concentrated around the second planet and its largest moon. Energy signatures indicate advanced technology, but no weapon systems that we can detect. Reed studied the holographic rendering of the system. Any response to our arrival? Increased communications activity. Communications Officer Chen replied. They've definitely noticed us, but no direct contact attempts yet. Open a channel, Reed ordered. Standard first contact protocols. Transmit in all frequencies and modulations. As the communications officer prepared the transmission, tactical alerts suddenly blared across the bridge. Captain, 3 vessels approaching from the system's outer boundary, Davis reported urgently. Configuration unknown, but energy signatures suggest offensive capabilities. They're on an intercept course, not with us, but with the second planet. Reed's expression hardened. Show me. The view screen shifted to display 3 sleek, predatory vessels with distinctive angular profiles that resembled nothing in Earth's database. Their trajectory indicated they were using the Intrepid's arrival as cover for their own approach. Those aren't responding to the distress call, Reed muttered. They're opportunists. Tactical. Analysis of those ships. Energy signatures suggest significant offensive capabilities, Davis reported. Design consistent with raid-class vessels. Fast, heavily armed, minimal defenses. They're running silent, Captain. This has all the hallmarks of a surprise attack. Reed made his decision instantly. Battle stations. Inform the group. Intercept those vessels before they reach the planet. Non-lethal deterrence if possible. But I want those ships stopped. As klaxons sounded throughout the Intrepid, Reed addressed the bridge crew. We came to answer a distress call. Looks like we arrived just in time to justify our presence. Let's introduce ourselves properly. On Aurora Station. The emergency protocols had been in effect for 3 cycles since the Gateway incident. The inadvertent distress signal had thrown the entire Senvar Alliance into unprecedented turmoil. The normally harmonious decision-making process had devolved into fractious debate between competing factions. In the central chamber, now repurposed as an emergency command center, Dr. Aylor faced the increasingly hostile Alliance Council. His form had dimmed considerably from its usual vibrant blue, reflecting his distress and exhaustion. The long-range sensors have detected artificial objects entering our system, he reported. Multiple vessels of unknown configuration and intent. Supreme Counselor Varen, who had barely left the station since the incident, vibrated with suppressed rage. As I predicted, your carelessness has brought unknown entities to our doorstep, entities that possess interstellar travel technology, and, undoubtedly, weapons to match. We cannot assume hostile intent, Mara countered, her form pulsing defiantly beside Dr. Aylor. The ancient texts specifically referred to protectors, not invaders. Mythology, spat Counselor Terrace, Varen's most vocal supporter. We face a potential extinction-level threat based on your misinterpretation of ancient fairy tales. The council chamber erupted in dissonant frequencies as counselors argued over the appropriate response. The Senvar Alliance, having known peace for generations, possessed minimal defensive capabilities. Their civilization had focused on scientific advancement and artistic expression, believing that interstellar distances would shield them from external threats. Dr. Aylor attempted to restore order. We have established communication protocols for potential first contact scenarios. If these entities responded to our signal, we must assume they possess at least some benevolent intent. And if they didn't respond to the signal? Varen challenged. If they merely detected our civilization and came to exploit it. Before Dr. Aylor could respond, a junior researcher burst into the chamber, her crystalline form pulsing with alarm. Multiple vessels detected at system periphery, she announced. 2 distinct groups with different configurations. One group appears to be intercepting the other. The chamber fell silent as the implications registered. Not one alien presence, but 2, possibly in conflict with each other. Display the sensor data, Varen commanded. A holographic representation materialized in the center of the chamber, showing the positions of the various vessels. One group, larger, more orderly in formation, had positioned itself between Aurora Station and the second group of sleeker, more aggressive-looking craft. The vessels in the outer formation appear to be preventing the inner group from approaching our position, Mara observed, her analytical mind quickly processing the tactical situation despite her lack of military training. Dr. Aylor's form brightened slightly with hope. This suggests the outer group may indeed be responding to our distress call, positioning themselves to protect us from the others. Or they simply want us for themselves, Terrace countered darkly. The debate might have continued indefinitely, had the situation not suddenly escalated. The sensor display showed energy discharges between the 2 groups of vessels, unmistakable signs of combat. They're fighting, Varen stated unnecessarily, his form rigid with shock. Violence on such a scale was almost incomprehensible to the peace-loving Valorans. Dr. Aylor made a quick decision. We must attempt communication with the outer group. If they are indeed responding to our call for protection, we need to establish dialogue. After a moment of hesitation, Varen nodded his assent. Proceed, but be prepared to implement emergency evacuation protocols if necessary. As the communications team scrambled to establish contact, the battle beyond their world intensified. The Senvar, who had never witnessed warfare firsthand, watched in horrified fascination as the fate of their civilization potentially hung in the balance. The bridge of the Intrepid rocked as another energy blast glanced off their defensive shields. Reed gripped his command chair, maintaining his composure despite the chaos erupting around him. "Shields holding at 78%, Davis reported. "The Craxus vessels are concentrating fire on the Edinburgh." "Divert Destroyer Group 2 to support Edinburgh," Reed ordered. "Maintain defensive formation around the planet. Do not pursue if they retreat." The tactical display showed the 3 Craxus raiders attempting to punch through the Earth vessel's blockade, their superior maneuverability making them difficult targets. But the Earth ships had the advantage in raw firepower and defensive capabilities. "Sir, we're receiving a transmission from the planet," Communications Officer Chen announced. "It's unlike any language pattern in our database." Reed nodded grimly. "Route it to linguistics and continue defensive operations. We'll make proper introductions after we've dealt with our unwelcome friends." On the view screen, one of the Craxus vessels executed a daring maneuver, slipping between 2 Earth destroyers and making a run toward the planet. Reed didn't hesitate. "Intrepid. Intercept course. Authorization for targeted weapons discharge. Engines only. I want that ship disabled, not destroyed." The massive flagship responded instantly, its powerful engines driving it into an intercept position. Precision beam weapons lanced out, striking the Craxus vessel's propulsion systems with surgical accuracy. The raider tumbled out of control, its engines flaring and then dying. "Direct hit," Tactical Officer Winters confirmed with satisfaction. "Target vessel has lost propulsion and weapons capability. Life support appears intact." Reed allowed himself a brief smile. "Well done. Maintain position between the disabled vessel and the planet. Let's see if its friends are feeling loyal today." The remaining Craxus ships, seeing their companion disabled and the Earth vessel's superior firepower demonstrated, abruptly altered course. Within moments, they had accelerated to FTL speeds, abandoning their disabled ally without hesitation. "Typical Craxus tactics," Reed muttered. "Hit hard, run fast, and no loyalty to their own." With the immediate threat neutralized, Reed turned his attention to the more complex challenge ahead. First contact with the civilization that had inadvertently summoned them. "Status of the disabled Craxus vessel?" he inquired. "Minimal power readings," Davis reported. "They're running on emergency systems. Life signs detected. Approximately 20 individuals. No signs of self-destruct protocols being initiated. Maintain distance, but keep weapons locked," Reed ordered. "Security. Prepare a boarding party. I want that ship secured." He turned to communications. "And now, let's properly introduce ourselves to our new friends on the planet. Prepare a first contact package with standard linguistic algorithms. Let's see if we can establish basic communication." As the crew executed his orders, Reed contemplated the situation. The presence of Craxus raiders complicated matters significantly. If they had detected the same distress signal, others would follow. The Craxus Dominion never missed an opportunity to acquire new technology or resources. Whatever civilization had sent the distress call now faced not just the challenge of first contact with humanity, but the immediate threat of Craxus predation. Reed's mission had just expanded well beyond a simple investigation. "Captain," Officer Patel called from the science station. "I've completed preliminary analysis of the planetary civilization. Their technology is fascinating. Advanced in some areas, particularly quantum physics and crystalline computing. But with minimal weapons development, they appear to be a peaceful society with no significant military infrastructure." Reed nodded, unsurprised. "Perfect targets for the Craxus, then, and now they've been exposed." He made a decision, one that would likely raise eyebrows at Earth Command, but which his conscience demanded. "Begin preparations for extended deployment. We're not leaving these people undefended while Craxus vultures circle." The first steps toward communication with the planetary civilization proceeded rapidly. The advanced algorithms developed through humanity's previous first contact experiences quickly identified patterns in the alien transmissions, establishing a rudimentary translation matrix. They call themselves the Senvar Alliance, Patel reported, as the data accumulated. And they're apologizing, Captain. They claim the signal we received was sent in error. Reed raised an eyebrow. An accidental distress call? That's a new one. He considered the implications. Intentional or not, it brought both us and the Craxus to their doorstep. Inform them that we've intercepted hostile vessels and request permission to send a delegation to discuss the situation. As the Intrepid established preliminary communication with Aurora Station, Reed prepared for what might be the most challenging first contact scenario of his career, and potentially the beginning of a crucial alliance in a dangerous galaxy. Dr. Aylor and Mira waited anxiously in Aurora Station's reception chamber, specially modified to accommodate the physiological needs of the approaching visitors. After intensive communication exchanges, they had learned enough about human biology to create an environment where both species could interact comfortably. They call themselves humans, Mira observed, her form shifting through nervous color patterns. From a planet called Earth, their physiology is remarkable, carbon-based, water-dependent, with internal calcium support structures. So different from our silicon crystalline composition, Dr. Aylor's form pulsed with agreement. Different indeed, yet their quantum understanding approaches our own, despite their different evolutionary path, and they responded to our signal with protection, just as the ancient texts foretold. Supreme Counselor Varen, who had insisted on being present for this historic meeting, vibrated with skepticism. They demonstrated impressive weapons capability against the Craxus vessels. We should not mistake tactical convenience for benevolence. They intercepted the Craxus because it served their interests, not necessarily ours. Yet they request permission to land rather than forcing their presence, Dr. Aylor countered. That suggests respect for sovereignty, a promising sign. Further discussion was interrupted by the arrival of the station's docking coordinator. The human shuttle has successfully attached to the modified airlock. Atmospheric composition has been adjusted to their requirements. They will enter momentarily. The Valorans arrange themselves in the traditional welcoming configuration, a semicircular formation with the highest-ranking individuals at the center. Their crystalline bodies refracted the chamber's light in a dazzling display that was both natural and, to human eyes, likely spectacular. The airlock cycled, and the chamber's secondary door slid open. 4 figures entered, unmistakably alien to Valoran perception. Where the Senvar were beings of translucent crystal and flowing light. These creatures were solid, opaque, encased in artificial coverings. They moved with a heavy deliberateness that spoke of greater mass and density than any Valoran. The leader stepped forward, a tall figure with a weathered exterior covering that the Valorans now understood was called skin. Unlike the flowing, malleable forms of the Senvar, this being maintained a rigid shape, supported by the internal calcium structure their communications had described. I am Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth Alliance vessel Intrepid, the human announced, his voice producing sound waves rather than the resonant frequencies used by Valorans. The translation matrix converted his speech into comprehensible patterns for the Senvar. With me are Science Officer Patel, Security Officer Winters, and Communications Specialist Liu. Dr. Aylor moved forward, his crystalline form shifting to emit a welcoming blue radiance. I am Dr. Aylor, quantum physicist and director of the Aurora Research Facility. With me are my assistant Mara and Supreme Counselor Varen of the Senvar Alliance. We welcome you to our world, though we regret the circumstances that brought you here. Reed's expression remained neutral, though his eyes, sensory organs unlike anything in Valoran physiology, moved constantly, taking in the alien environment and its inhabitants. Your distress signal was received and authenticated by Earth Alliance monitoring stations. Reed stated, "We responded according to our protocols. It appears we arrived just in time to prevent a Craxus raiding party from reaching your world." Varen's form darkened with concern. "You know these aggressive entities?" "The Craxus Dominion," Reed confirmed grimly. "A predatory civilization that specializes in technological appropriation. They identify advanced societies, raid them for technology and resources, and leave devastation in their wake. We've had confrontations with them before, and now they know of our existence," Dr. Aylor observed, his form dimming with distress. Reed nodded. "I'm afraid so. The 3 vessels we encountered were likely an advanced scouting party. Once they report back, more will come. The Craxus are persistent when they identify a valuable target." "And are we such a target?" Mira asked, though she suspected the answer. Officer Patel responded, her voice softer than Reed's, but equally direct. "Your quantum technology appears to be significantly advanced. The Craxus would consider it highly valuable. And forgive my directness, but your civilization seems to have limited defensive capabilities." A heavy silence fell over the chamber as the implications sank in. The Senvar's peaceful existence, isolated from galactic affairs, had abruptly ended. They were now exposed to a dangerous universe for which they were woefully unprepared. "What do you propose, Captain Reed?" Varen finally asked, his tone formal, but tinged with unmistakable concern. Reed straightened, his posture reflecting the gravity of the situation. "With your permission, I would like to establish a temporary defensive perimeter around your system. Earth Alliance protocols permit protective action for civilizations under imminent threat. Additionally, I request facility access for our technical teams to integrate our defensive systems with your infrastructure." Dr. Aylor and Varen exchanged vibrations, a private communication expressing both hope and reservation. After a brief conference, Varen responded, "We accept your offer of protection, Captain, but we must understand your motivations more fully. What does Earth hope to gain from this arrangement?" Reed's expression softened slightly. "Knowledge exchange would be beneficial. Your quantum research appears to be ahead of our own in several areas. But primarily, Earth has a strategic interest in preventing Craxus expansion. Every civilization they raid strengthens their position and threatens regional stability." He paused, then added with unexpected candor, "And, speaking personally, I have a fundamental objection to standing by while a peaceful society is victimized. Not all of my superiors share that sentiment, but it's a core value of the Earth Alliance, at least in principle." The honesty of this statement resonated with the Valorans, whose crystalline forms shifted to more receptive configurations. Even Varen's skepticism seemed to diminish slightly. "Very well," Dr. Aylor decided. "We shall cooperate with your defensive preparations, and I would be most interested in sharing quantum research with your scientists. Perhaps together, we can find solutions that neither of us could discover alone." As the initial meeting concluded, and arrangements were made for further cooperation, Mara approached the human called Patel, her curiosity overcoming her natural caution. "Your species evolved on what you call a Deathworld, a planet with high gravity, extreme temperature variations, and predatory life forms," she observed. "Yet you developed not only survival capabilities, but complex ethics and art. This seems contradictory to us." Patel smiled, a facial movement that the translation matrix indicated expressed amicability. "Perhaps harsh conditions don't only breed harshness. Sometimes they create a deeper appreciation for cooperation and protection. When survival is difficult, those who work together often succeed where individuals would fail." This perspective resonated with Mara, whose form brightened thoughtfully. Perhaps these solid, opaque beings from a harsh world might indeed be the protectors the ancient texts had foretold, not despite their evolutionary background, but because of it. In the secure holding bay of the Intrepid, Commander Vrock of the disabled Craxus vessel seethed with barely contained rage. His reptilian features, scaled skin, vertical pupils, and prominent jaw ridges contorted in a snarl as Captain Reed entered the detention area. "You violation protocols of space engagement," Vrock hissed, his translator device struggling with Earth standard. "Craxus Dominion, not forget this interference." Reed regarded the prisoner impassively. The Craxus commander was smaller than a human, but densely muscled, with natural armor plating that made his species formidable close-quarters combatants. But here, separated by a force field and disarmed, he posed no physical threat. "Your vessel was preparing to attack a peaceful civilization," Reed stated flatly. "The Senvar have committed no aggression against the Dominion. Your actions constituted unprovoked hostility." Vrock's scaled lips pulled back, revealing serrated teeth. "Weak species have no claim to advanced technology. This universal law. Strong take, weak surrender. Senvar wasted quantum science on art." He spat the last word, as if it were an obscenity. Reed maintained his professional demeanor, though inwardly he felt a familiar disgust. The Craxus philosophy of might makes right had brought suffering to countless developing civilizations. "I've come to inform you that according to Galactic Convention guidelines, your crew will be provided with a functional escape vessel. You will be released beyond this system's boundary, with sufficient provisions to reach the nearest Craxus outpost." Vrock's eyes narrowed with suspicion. "You not destroy us?" "Earth Alliance doesn't execute prisoners," Reed replied. "Even those caught in attempted raids." A calculating look crossed the Craxus commander's face. "You soft. Like Senvar. Craxus return with battle fleet. Take what we want. Kill who resist." Reed stepped closer to the force field, his voice dropping to a quieter register. "Before you report back to your superiors, consider this. Earth Alliance has deployed significant resources to this system. Any Craxus incursion will face not just a single ship, but a battle group with full defensive authorization. The technological gains would not justify the losses your fleet would sustain." He paused, letting the implication sink in. "Sometimes, Commander Vrock, strength is shown by choosing not to fight when the cost outweighs the benefit. Your superiors might appreciate that strategic calculation." Vrock remained defiantly silent, but a flicker of uncertainty crossed his reptilian features. Reed had commanded long enough to recognize when a threat had landed effectively. "You'll be transferred to the transport vessel in 6 hours, Reed concluded. "I suggest you use that time to consider what report will best serve your personal interests when you return to your superiors." As Reed departed the detention area, his second-in-command, Commander Davis, fell into step beside him. "You think they'll back off?" she asked quietly. Reed's expression was grim. "Not permanently, but we might buy enough time to establish proper defenses and begin technology integration. The Craxus respect strength and calculate risk meticulously. If we can convince them that the Senvar are now too costly a target, they'll focus elsewhere, at least temporarily." "And Earth Command? They haven't officially sanctioned this extended protection mission." Reed's mouth tightened. "I've submitted my justification report. The quantum technology we stand to gain from cooperation with the Senvar should be sufficient incentive for Command to approve retroactively. If not," he shrugged, "I'll accept the consequences of my decision." Davis nodded, her loyalty evident. "For what it's worth, sir, the crew stands with you on this. The Senvar deserve protection, and the Craxus need to be checked. It's the right call." "Let's hope Command agrees," Reed replied, though his tone suggested he had made peace with his decision, regardless of official reaction. "Now, let's see about integrating our defense systems with Senvar technology. I have a feeling we're about to learn some very interesting lessons in quantum physics." On Aurora Station, the atmosphere had transformed dramatically. Where once tranquil research had proceeded at a measured pace, now urgent activity filled every chamber. Earth Alliance technical teams worked alongside Senvar scientists, creating unprecedented synergies between their disparate technologies. In the central laboratory, Dr. Aylor observed with fascination as engineer Jack Wilson, a burly human with perpetually stained hands and an enthusiastic manner, manipulated the crystalline interface of a Senvar quantum computer. "Your computational architecture is bloody brilliant," Wilson exclaimed, his voice filled with professional admiration. "You're processing quantum states we've only theorized about. But your application, it's all theoretical modeling and artistic rendering. The military applications are just sitting there, untapped." Dr. Aylor's form shifted uncomfortably. The Senvar have traditionally viewed technology as a means of understanding and expression, not as weaponry. Wilson looked up, his expression softening. "I get it, and it's admirable. But the Craxus aren't going to respect your philosophical position. They're going to try to take everything you've built and use it for exactly what you've avoided." Mara, who had been silently observing, pulsed with reluctant agreement. "The human is correct, Doctor. Our pacifist principles cannot protect us from those who do not share them. Perhaps adapting some of our technology for defense doesn't betray our values. It preserves our ability to uphold them." Dr. Aylor considered this perspective, his crystalline structure shifting through thoughtful patterns. "What do you propose, Engineer Wilson?" Wilson's face lit up with excitement. "Your quantum field manipulators, the ones you use for artistic light sculptures. With minor modifications, they could generate disruptive fields that would disable Craxus weapons and propulsion systems without destroying their vessels. Non-lethal defensive technology," Dr. Aylor mused, finding the concept more acceptable than destructive weaponry. "This might align with our ethical framework." "Exactly," Wilson agreed enthusiastically. "You don't have to become warriors to defend yourselves. You just need to adapt your existing technology in ways the Craxus won't expect." As they delved into the technical details, Mara found herself increasingly impressed by the human engineer's creativity. Where the Senvar saw beauty and theoretical elegance in quantum manipulation, Wilson envisioned practical applications they had never considered, not all of them military. "Your medical applications of quantum fields are particularly promising," Wilson commented as they worked. "On Earth, we've barely scratched the surface of quantum healing techniques. The precision with which you can manipulate cellular structures is revolutionary. Perhaps that could be our first formal knowledge exchange," Mara suggested. "Medical technology harms no one and benefits all." Wilson nodded enthusiastically. "Captain Reed would approve. He's always pushed for humanitarian applications first in first-contact scenarios." Their collaboration continued for hours, gradually transforming theoretical concepts into practical designs. By the time Captain Reed and Supreme Counselor Varen arrived to check their progress, Wilson and Dr. Aylor had produced preliminary schematics for what they called quantum disruptors, defensive systems that could temporarily disable attacking vessels without causing permanent damage. "Impressive," Reed commented, reviewing the technical specifications. "How soon could a prototype be ready?" Wilson scratched his beard thoughtfully. "With Senvar fabrication technology, 48 hours for a small-scale test unit. Maybe 2 weeks for system-wide implementation. The Craxus will return before then," Reed cautioned. "Their nearest major base is approximately 10 days from this position." Varen, who had been uncharacteristically quiet during recent developments, finally spoke. "Then we must accelerate our efforts. I will authorize additional resources and personnel." He turned to Dr. Aylor, his crystalline form emanating reluctant acceptance. "The Gateway project is officially suspended. All research teams will now focus on these defensive measures." Dr. Aylor pulsed with surprise. Varen had been the Gateway's most vocal political supporter for years. This decision represented a seismic shift in Senvar priorities. Counselor, are you certain? The Gateway represents decades of research and our greatest hope for interstellar connection. Connection has found us regardless, Varen replied, gesturing toward Reed and Wilson. Now we must ensure our civilization survives to explore it properly. His form shifted to a more authoritative configuration. Begin production immediately. I will inform the Council of our decision. As Varen departed, Reed turned to Dr. Aylor with a curious expression. The Gateway Project. That's what triggered the distress signal, wasn't it? What was its intended purpose? Dr. Aylor's form dimmed slightly, with lingering regret. It was meant to create stable wormholes, instantaneous pathways between distant points in space. We believed we had decoded the necessary quantum formulas from ancient texts, but we mistranslated a crucial passage. Instantaneous travel, Reed mused. That would revolutionize interstellar civilization. No wonder the Craxus are interested. The technology remains theoretical, Dr. Aylor cautioned. Our error with the translation proves we still don't fully understand the principles involved. Reed nodded thoughtfully. Perhaps that's a project we can revisit together, after we've secured your world against the Craxus threat. As they returned to work, a new sense of purpose energized the collaborative teams. The Senvar were beginning to understand that their peaceful existence required protection, and their human allies were teaching them that defense need not compromise their fundamental values. The next 10 days passed in a blur of frenetic activity. Aurora Station transformed from a research facility into a command center coordinating system-wide defensive preparations. Earth Alliance vessels established strategic positions throughout the Senvar system, their crews working tirelessly to integrate the newly developed quantum disruptor technology. On the Intrepid's bridge, Captain Reed reviewed the latest deployment updates with his senior staff. The holographic display showed the positions of Earth vessels and the newly established defensive arrays. The outer sensor grid is online, Commander Davis reported. We'll have advance warning of any approach. The quantum disruptors have been successfully tested against simulated Craxus shield configurations. Reed nodded with satisfaction. And the Senvar evacuation protocols? In place, but hopefully unnecessary, Officer Patel responded. Key scientific and cultural repositories have been duplicated and secured in hardened bunkers beneath the surface. If the worst happens, their civilization's knowledge will survive. Reed studied the tactical display thoughtfully. Let's make sure it doesn't come to that. The Craxus respond to decisive strength. Our goal is to make them reconsider this target, not to engage in prolonged conflict. Security Officer Winters, ever the pessimist, frowned. Assuming they bring a standard raiding fleet, sir. If they've called in reinforcements from their core territories, then we adapt, Reed stated firmly. Earth Alliance has approved my request for reinforcements. 2 additional battle groups are on standby if needed. The discussion was interrupted by an urgent alert from the sensor officer. Captain, multiple FTL signatures detected approaching the system boundary. Configuration matches Craxus vessels, larger force than anticipated. Reed straightened, his expression hardening into battle readiness. How many? 7 raid-class vessels and 1 command cruiser. Significantly more firepower than the scouting party. They're taking us seriously, Reed observed grimly. Good. That means they'll also take our deterrent seriously. Battle stations. Inform all Earth vessels to assume defensive positions per Plan Delta. And notify Dr. Aylor. It's time to see if his quantum disruptors perform as designed. As the Intrepid crew prepared for potential conflict, Reed opened a channel to Aurora Station. Dr. Aylor's crystalline form appeared on the view screen, his usual blue radiance now tinged with anxiety. The Craxus have returned, Reed informed him without preamble. A larger force than we anticipated. Are the planetary defense systems ready? The primary arrays are operational, Dr. Aylor confirmed. But they remain untested against actual Craxus technology. Engineer Wilson has made final calibrations based on the data from the captured vessel. But we're about to find out how accurate those calibrations are, Reed finished for him. Maintain station protocols and prepare to activate the arrays on my signal. The Craxus fleet dropped out of FTL at the system boundary, maintaining formation just beyond weapons range. The command cruiser, a massive vessel bristling with weapon emplacements, took position at the center, surrounded by the smaller, more agile raid ships. They're being cautious, Davis observed. That's unusual for Craxus tactics. Our presence has altered their standard approach, Reed replied. Good. Let's see if they're open to conversation before things get messy. Open a channel to the Craxus command vessel. After a brief delay, the view screen shifted to show a Craxus commander, older than Vrock, with more elaborate scale patterns and ceremonial armor indicating higher rank. I am War Leader Drex of the Craxus Dominion, the reptilian figure announced without preamble. You occupy territory claimed for harvest by Dominion authority. Withdraw your vessels, or be destroyed. Reed met the alien's gaze steadily. I am Captain Marcus Reed of the Earth Alliance. The Senvar system is under our protection by formal agreement. There will be no harvest today or any day. I suggest you reconsider your position. War Leader Drex's scaled lips curled in contempt. Commander Vrock reported your interference. He also reported primitive weapons and limited numbers. Your protection means nothing. Senvar technology belongs to the strong. The Dominion is strong. Your information is outdated, Reed countered. Since Commander Vrock's visit, we've established comprehensive defensive systems throughout this system. Any hostile approach will be met with force sufficient to neutralize your entire fleet. Drex's reptilian features remained impassive, but his vertical pupils contracted, a sign of intensified focus. You bluff. Earth vessels not carry sufficient weaponry to threaten Dominion fleet. Reed allowed himself a small, confident smile. We're not relying solely on Earth technology. War Leader. The Senvar have been quite innovative when properly motivated. Perhaps a demonstration is in order. He signaled to Davis, who relayed commands to one of the defensive platforms. A moment later, a concentrated quantum pulse fired from a nearby asteroid-mounted array, striking one of the outer Craxus vessels with pinpoint precision. The raider didn't explode or show external damage. Instead, its lights flickered and died, and it began drifting out of formation, clearly disabled. Drex's expression shifted to one of surprise and then rage. What weapon is this? Quantum disruptor technology, Reed explained calmly. It temporarily disables, rather than destroys. Your vessel will regain power in approximately 1 hour, enough time for its crew to experience the humiliation of helplessness without suffering actual harm. The remaining arrays are targeted on your other vessels, including your command cruiser. He leaned forward slightly. We could disable your entire fleet with the press of a button. War Leader. The Senvar are no longer the defenseless target you anticipated. The question now is whether the Dominion wishes to risk significant losses for a harvest that will not succeed. Drex's scaled features contorted with barely suppressed fury, but Reed recognized the calculating look in those reptilian eyes. The Craxus were predators, but they were not foolish. They preferred easy prey and would abandon a hunt that promised more injury than reward. After a tense silence, Drex spoke again, his voice a low hiss. Dominion will remember this interference. Earth Captain, there are many worlds, many technologies. We find easier harvests, for now. The transmission cut abruptly, and the Craxus fleet began maneuvering. They retrieved their disabled vessel with tractor beams and, maintaining a cautious distance from the defensive arrays, gradually retreated toward the system boundary. They're powering FTL drives, Davis reported, unable to keep a note of relief from her voice. Departure vectors indicate a course away from Senvar space. Reed allowed himself to relax marginally. Maintain alert status until they're well beyond sensor range, and inform Dr. Aylor that his disruptors performed exactly as designed. As the bridge crew monitored the Craxus withdrawal, Reed reflected on the remarkable turn of events. What had begun as a response to an accidental distress call had evolved into something far more significant. The beginning of what might become a powerful alliance between two very different civilizations. The Senvar had much to teach humanity about quantum physics and peaceful scientific advancement. And humanity, it seemed, had something valuable to offer in return: the protective strength that allowed peaceful societies to maintain their chosen way of life in a galaxy not always hospitable to gentler philosophies. 2 standard months after the Craxus confrontation, Aurora Station had been transformed. The central chamber, once dedicated solely to the Quantum Gateway project, now housed a remarkable collaborative effort. Earth scientists and engineers worked alongside Valoran researchers, their disparate physiologies and backgrounds coming together in unprecedented cooperation. Dr. Aylor's form glowed with renewed vigor as he guided Captain Reed through the modified facility. The integration of Earth defensive technology with our quantum systems has progressed beyond our most optimistic projections, he explained, his tendrils gesturing toward various workstations where humans and Valorans collaborated. "And the response from Earth Command?" Dr. Aylor inquired. Reed smiled slightly. "Initially skeptical, but the preliminary reports on Senvar quantum technology quickly changed their perspective. The formal alliance treaty has been approved, mutual defense and scientific exchange, with full recognition of Senvar sovereignty." They paused before a large, holographic display showing the modified quantum gateway. The apparatus had been redesigned, incorporating both Senvar theoretical models and Earth engineering pragmatism. "Engineer Wilson believes we've identified the translation error that caused our initial miscommunication," Dr. Aylor continued. "The gateway was never meant to create physical wormholes for travel. It was designed to establish quantum entanglement between distant points, allowing instantaneous communication rather than transportation." Reed studied the display with interest. "That would still revolutionize interstellar relations. Instantaneous communication across any distance would transform diplomacy, trade, and defensive coordination." "Precisely," Dr. Aylor agreed, his form brightening with enthusiasm. "And without the dangers inherent in physical matter transmission, we believe we can establish the first stable quantum communication link between Aurora Station and Earth within 6 standard months." They continued their tour, eventually reaching a viewing platform overlooking the station's exterior. Beyond the crystalline dome, Earth Alliance vessels maintained their protective presence, integrated now with Senvar defensive arrays. The 3 sons of the system cast their multi-hued light across this unprecedented cooperative effort. "Your people have adapted remarkably well to these changes," Reed observed. "Even Supreme Counselor Varen seems to have embraced the alliance concept." Dr. Aylor's form shifted in the Valoran equivalent of amusement. "Varen is practical above all else. He recognizes that our isolation has ended, for better or worse. Better to face the wider galaxy with strong allies than alone." Reed nodded thoughtfully. "Earth faced similar challenges when we first ventured beyond our solar system. The galaxy can be unforgiving to solitary civilizations, no matter how advanced." "A lesson we've learned through your experience rather than our own suffering," Dr. Aylor acknowledged. "For that, we remain deeply grateful." Their philosophical discussion was interrupted by the arrival of Mara, her crystalline form pulsing with excitement. "Dr. Aylor, Captain Reed, we've received a transmission from the long-range quantum monitoring array. Another signal has been detected." Reed's expression sharpened with interest. "Similar to the one that brought us here?" "Nearly identical quantum signature," Mara confirmed, "but originating from a different sector, approximately 40 light-years from the edge of charted space." Dr. Aylor and Captain Reed exchanged meaningful glances. The implications were clear. Another civilization, possibly similar to the Senvar, had activated quantum technology that generated the same distinctive signal. The ancient text spoke of multiple guardian-seeking civilizations scattered throughout the galaxy. Dr. Aylor mused. Perhaps we were not the only ones to discover and misinterpret the quantum formulas. Reed's expression grew thoughtful. Or perhaps they've interpreted them correctly. And this truly is a call for protection. He straightened. Decision made. Either way, Earth Alliance protocols are clear. We investigate all distress calls. But this time, Dr. Aylor added, his form brightening, you would not go alone. The Senvar Alliance can offer both scientific expertise and our quantum disruptor technology. A joint mission, Reed agreed, warming to the concept. Diplomatic, scientific, and, if necessary, defensive. The first true collaborative effort between our civilizations. As they began discussing the practical details of such an unprecedented mission, both leaders recognized the historic significance of the moment. What had begun as an accidental encounter, a mistranslated formula, and an unintended distress call, had evolved into something neither civilization could have achieved alone. A partnership that combined the Senvar's peaceful scientific brilliance with humanity's protective strength and practical experience. Beyond the crystalline dome of Aurora Station, the three sons of the Senvar system continued their eternal dance, casting their light on two vastly different species, now united in common purpose. And somewhere in the darkness between distant stars, another civilization waited, unknowing that their quantum signal had been received, and that response was already being prepared. In the vastness of the galaxy, new connections were forming, bridges between worlds that would forever change the future of all involved. The quantum gateway had failed in its original purpose, but it had opened a different kind of passage, one that promised even greater discoveries in the shared journey ahead.